Hey, John Gilroy here. If you attend a security conference, sooner or later you hear the phrase, artificial intelligence is new perimeter and the new attack surface. Well, today, let's look at artificial intelligence and zero trust. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator in the virtual studio today. World-famous John Kindervag, chief evangelist at Illumio. We talked about zero trust the last time. We had a kind of a discussion from 40,000 feet, hit a bunch of different topics, and we ended talking about protecting the attack surface and talking about artificial intelligence. So, John, you led it right into this discussion today. You're ready to handle AI and zero trust?
Absolutely. Yep.
Good. Well, let's come up with it. I've been to a bunch of security conferences. I see people making all kinds of drastic statements, and you got to worry about your API. You got to protect your API. You got to protect your LLMs. You got to protect your attack surface. So what about zero trust and artificial intelligence? I imagine there's companies out there that are beating the drum saying, hey, ABC company here, we can help you make a transition to zero trust by using artificial intelligence. Where does it fit in this whole discussion?
Well, there's a number of places that it fits. I mean, I wrote an article for Financial Times of London earlier this year about why I'm not losing sleep over AI, because I see AI giving us an opportunity to see things that we've never seen before and to take actions extremely quickly to stop malicious attackers in their tracks if we do it right. So there's a huge opportunity out there for us. It's also going to be very malicious at the same time. So the two sides of the coin are diametrically opposed. But as we build technology and we leverage AI, we can take all the data that we're accumulating from these systems that we're monitoring, and we can see these attacks, and then we can tell the AI system to, if you see this thing, that thing, or the other thing, that are theoretically bad, then stop them. And one of the key things that attackers rely on is a lack of visibility by the entity being attacked, right? We have this thing called dwell time, which is how long has the attacker been in your environment before you see them. And that's days, weeks, years, sometimes even decades, right? Nortel went out of business. It was hacked out of business. So 30 years, a foreign nation state was in Nortel. So it's that lack of visibility, and we can get more and more visibility leveraging AI because we can parse through logs much more quickly than we can manually.
But sometimes you have data that is low quality, and so you're expecting AI to take low-quality data or maybe low-quality identity information and make decisions about it. So isn't that just pose a problem in and of itself? Goes back to the quality of the AI?
Well, it depends on how many signals you have, right? Because you should never do anything based upon a single signal. So you're going to have some high-quality data, some low-quality data, some stuff that is more useful than the other, and you have to contextualize it, right? And so you contextualize it by understanding what you're protecting, that what we call the protect surface, the inversion of the attack surface that we talked about last time. And so once you say, okay, I'm protecting this credit card database, then all I care about for this particular protect surface is traffic heading towards the credit card database. And now I can look at, identity signals. I can look at, metadata in the packet. I can look at payload stuff. I can look at a whole bunch of different things and make a decision on whether to actually allow this or not. Zero trust is a set of granular allow rules. So we start with a deny rule because, all you can do is allow or deny in cybersecurity. That's it. And so it's very binary. And most people start with a kind of allow all and then try to play whack-a-mole, but no one wins at whack-a-mole. You've never won at whack-a-mole, have you, when you were at Chuck E. Cheese with your kids? So, no one wins at whack-a-mole. So we start with a default deny. We deny everything, and then we just turn on and we say, John's allowed to access X, Y, and Z, and that's it. And so that really reduces the ability of the attackers to take advantage of all of these open allow rules, because I have a saying, all bad things happen inside of an allow rule. If something bad happens in an organization, there was a rule in place that allowed it to happen. In the practical world, let me go back a few years. People said, move to the cloud. So John Kindervag would move to the cloud. And people found that some of the charges there were higher than they thought, and egress charges were high, and they were surprised at that. So theoretically, it may sound good, but some of the practical aspects of cloud is being challenged, and we see maybe a move back to on-prem here. Let's apply this here to AI. So use AI as a tool to help you with identity or with data management. But if AI isn't, I guess, architected correctly, it can, or maybe funded correctly, it doesn't have funding for storage and analytics. So it can be a nice theory, but then it's got to be held back. So talking about in a podcast weekend about AI, but then the practical aspects of it may limit it, huh? Yeah, I mean, I think we're awfully early in this game. I mean, an AI expert that I saw in Europe a few weeks ago said the difference between me and everybody else is I'm a chapter ahead in the book, right? What he meant was, hey, this is so early that, we're all kind of guessing. And, but I am seeing people who are saying, I don't want to use, the general purpose AI systems. I'm going to have a domain specific AI system for my organization for a particular purpose, and I'm going to host it on premise so I can control it better, so that hopefully it doesn't leak into the cloud, or into a general purpose, ChatGPT, Anthropic kind of AI, and we're seeing some of that start to happen now, and that may be a good idea. I mean, it sounds like a good idea today. Whether we're going to say that in a year, I don't know, because we don't have any evidence about any of these things now. We're all guessing, but your LLM should be a protect surface for your organization because of the type of data that it stores. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's why people talk about, the different companies I've interviewed, Lasso Security is one that just focuses on that pretty carefully. Still, I'm thinking about zero trust, and I went to YouTube and saw an interview you did earlier this year, and didn't talk about the Wayne Gretzky, skate ahead of the puck like John Kindervag can. Well, what he was talking about is that, well, where do you start then? Go back to John Kindervag chapter 1. And what you said is that any place is a good place to start, as long as you start and have, and some kind of maybe a protected area, can't make too many mistakes. So let's go, instead of forward and AI, let's go back to the starting. So from a federal perspective, what kind of baby steps can my listeners take? Well, I created a thing called the Zero Trust Learning Curve while sitting in the Pentagon doing a project for the U.S. military, where we define a curve where we start with early on with low sensitivity protect surfaces. And I call those learning protect surfaces. So you start with something that has almost no value, that normally you wouldn't spend any effort on, but you need to learn how to do it. And then after that, you'll focus on some stuff that is a little more sensitive, but still not mission critical. Those are known as practice protect surfaces. I got that term from Tony Scott, the former CIO of the U.S. federal government, who's a friend of mine. And he likes to say that you get to zero trust the same way you get to Carnegie Hall. You practice, practice, practice. And then after you've learned and practiced, that's when you focus on those high value assets. But the problem that I've seen in my experience is most people don't know how that system that contains the high value assets actually works. So it's very hard to secure it. So they say, well, we're going to go straight to those high value assets. And that's where I find that things break. So I tell people, learn, practice, then go for the big stuff. And that's how Wayne Gretzky did it, right? I mean, he started out as a kid. He learned to play hockey. Then he practiced a lot and he got really good at it. And it was after learning and practicing that he knew how to skate to where the puck was going to go. It wasn't like that he was born with that knowledge. He developed that knowledge over a period of time. Usually when people have to make a transition or change in cybersecurity, they talk about
risk appetite. And maybe one can start off with low value data and play around with that and move up. So how do you train yourself? How do you train your team to move up on that maturity model to assuming more and more risk or moving close to the high value data?
Well, I think once your team gets more confident in their ability to build the systems, then they're automatically going to go in that direction. It's going to become second nature to them. And it's not going to be confusing. It's going to be simple. And so it's just anything that you do the first time is difficult. I don't care what it is. Michael Phelps, the first swimming lesson he took, he probably almost drowned. I had a Navy SEAL. He defined swimming for me. Swimming is the ability to stay alive in the water for as long as possible because the water always wins, right? The water always wins. I mean, eventually the water is going to win. And so, Michael Phelps, there was a time when he didn't know how to swim. But again, he learned and he practiced, and then he set a bunch of world records, and he had all these gold medals around his neck. And that became no one said, when is it that you're going to start, winning races and setting world records? Those things came naturally through the progression of learning and practice.
Let's go back to the opening statement you made about AI and whack-a-mole. Now, what we see is that adversaries or malicious actors, if you want to use that phrase, they're using AI for phishing, for spoofing, for evasion. It seems like it may be able to manipulate some AI controls in some ways that we're not even having thought of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of my predictions this year for some, thing that I had to do was that agentic AI, where, let's look at the word agentic. Agentic in computer science means that the system has agency over the operating system, over the ability to control the computer. So we're going to see these agentic AI systems become malicious insiders. They're going to be the next Snowden, the next Manning.
And so new guidelines for zero trust will have to evolve?
Well, no, the guidelines are the same. Put it in a protect surface, decide who should have access to it, design the system from the inside out. Everything is the same. It's just a different, what we call DAS element, data application asset or service. And so you have to put it into a protect surface in order for you to have visibility on what it's doing. And I think everybody's so excited about AI that they're not thinking about the implications of security. I mean, this is true about anything new. I was sitting next to a guy on a plane who had just invented this computer chip that you implanted into the brain, and it controlled what was known as the Luke arm, right? So there was the first robotic arm. It was called the Luke arm. The guy who invented the Segway created it, and he had invented this chip, and he was showing me all of the ways that it worked and explaining me how it was a fascinating thing. He was showing it to me and showing me surgeries on how they implanted, and it had this big long umbilical to a computer, and so the person's thoughts would run through the computer, and then it would control the arm, and if the person thought move the hand up, it would move it up. And he said, we're going to take the wire from a cochlear implant and use that as an antenna to make this wireless, and so we can control it by Wi-Fi, and they won't be tied to a machine anymore. And I said, oh, well, what are you guys doing for the security part of this, to protect how this is being accessed? And he literally turned pale. And he said, I've never thought about this. He said, if someone hacks into this chip, they could paralyze or kill the person. And then he just closed the laptop very, very slowly. And we sat quietly next to each other for the rest of the flight because I had destroyed his enthusiasm for this thing that he had created, which was miraculous. It was amazing. The way it worked was fascinating. But of course, he hadn't considered the cybersecurity implications of this thing that he was excited about.
I was doing some research this morning about zero trust deployments and your suggestion to start off small with low value data and move up from there. And your analogy with swimming was you get swimming, you naturally go faster and faster, quicker, longer distances. So I stumbled on this phrase this morning. I was in a YouTube video. I don't know where it was, but it talked about pilot purgatory. I heard, okay, we're going to stay here. No, let's move up. No, let's just stay here with the donuts. No, let's move. No. And so I can see humans and maybe 100 different agencies, and you get 100 different deployments, but there's going to be humans in there that are going to not want to jump. Here we go, the swimming, and not going to jump in the deep end here.
Right.
So,
well, and I think that's a leadership question, right? Because what the person who wants to stay in what you call pilot purgatory here, they're afraid of getting in trouble. So they're managing their own downside risk instead of managing the upside potential of the organization, because there are perverse incentives involved in it. The late, great Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner at Berkshire Hathaway, used to say, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. Well, if the incentive is, who can we yell at because something went wrong, then nobody's going to do anything. And so if you just stay in that one place and don't ever advance, you can just go, hey, I didn't do that. I did nothing. And it's kind of like, you're old enough to remember Hogan's Heroes, right?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, right. I know nothing, right? Remember the sergeant in Hogan's Heroes? I know nothing. And so, he was like doing nothing because that way he couldn't get in trouble. And I think that's a problem of incentives. And again, I've written about that also for the Financial Times of London, about how we have to have better incentives in place from leadership to say do the right thing. And occasionally there are going to be mistakes. And that's fine as long as we're trying to learn from them, as long as we're getting better from them. But we live in a culture where everybody just wants to yell and point the finger and blame somebody. And it's that blame game that I've been seeing for 25 years. I think the first thing I ever wrote that was like a blog in a proto website years and years ago that I built myself was we got to get rid of the blame game, because it destroys the culture. And then you end up with nobody doing anything to stop the bad people.
Speaking of bad people, the DOW stops bad people all the time. And last month, they had a executive summary that was released. It was about operational technology, scope and purpose. Have you gone through that, or what's your experience been with the Department of War? We talked about this the last time, but there seems to be more and more attention being focused on this in many different areas, all kinds of pilot programs over there.
Well, I'm not ready to talk about that yet. I am actually getting on a plane after this recording to fly somewhere to go meet with people from that particular agency. So I'm not in it. I don't feel comfortable about talking about their guidelines or anything around that. We're doing research around it. I have done a lot of zero trust for OT over the years, and it works exactly the same way. Your OT system becomes a protect surface. Your PLC, your HMI, your sensor, your SCADA system, whatever it is the protect surface, and then you control who has access to it via what application. So if I have a PLC using Modbus, and then I have 3 admins who are going to be allowed to access it, that's it. That's the entire policy. And and so it's actually easy to do. It aligns very well with ISA IEC 62443, which is sort of the OT guidelines around cybersecurity and other operational issues. So I do a lot of work in that area. I just don't want to comment about something that has been so recently released that I haven't delved into it deep enough to give you an opinion.
I understand completely. What I see in the federal government, I see organizations like NIST coming up with suggestions for managing the cloud, let's say, and they have suggestions for zero trust, and then the DoD may have a variation on that. But and then maybe your govies may not understand this, I see a lot of state organizations falling in line with whatever these principles are. And so if you go ahead and try to work out some kind of guidance for OT with the DoD, I think it's going to have much, much broader impact than people realize. And I think that I see people in the States coming up, we had FedRAMP for a while. Now they have something called GovRAMP. I mean, it just seems like it's a cascading effect of security. So I think the work you're doing is going to really have long-term effect.
It's actually state ramp.
Oh, state. Well, it's just changed. It changed actually recently to Gov.
Did they? Well, and that is not anything at all like FedRAMP, which is a government program. State
but
ramp
the cascade comes down.
Yeah, no, the cascade comes down and the cascade goes global, right? So, I was just in Sweden and, oh no, we have to do these things. So, we have to do what this agency says or this agency says. No, you don't. You're in Sweden. Those are things that are designed for U.S. federal agencies, right? You don't have to do that. You're in Sweden. You can do whatever you want, right? You do what's best for you, and you're not, constrained by particular laws like in the U.S. federal government, where we have laws like FISMA that say that you have to do what OMB says and blah blah blah. And and it's a complex thing, and it's hard. I think it's harder to do work in the U.S. federal government than it is to do it in the private sector because of all of those things. Those controls that are meant to provide the guardrails also kind of guard you from getting in and actually doing the work sometimes, and that's sometimes unfortunate.
Well, here we are in December. Everyone's looking forward to 2026. So give me some John Kindervag predictions for the next couple of years, where you see this whole technology headed. Big event, going to change people's minds, or just a slow progression? What do you think is going to happen here?
I think the trend to move out of the cloud for certain things is going to continue on. The cloud is getting very, very expensive, and so some people are beginning to move out of the cloud. AI is going to continue to be the thing that everybody talks about. The question is, does Skynet go self-aware and build robots that are going to come and kill us, right? I mean, Elon Musk even joked that he thought there was a 10 to 20% chance that the robots will all come and kill us, and he's building robots, right? So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, it's really, really hard to predict, because I've been thinking about this AI problem for a long time, since AlphaGo. When AlphaGo happened, that when Google built AlphaGo to beat the game of Go, which is the most complex game that humans play, and they did it so handily, I thought, oh, there's going to be some real interesting things happening here. It accelerated faster than I thought, and what we're seeing, really, I think, is that AI is as much a hardware problem as a software problem, because you have to have things move very, very fast in order for it to appear to be intelligent or to appear to be living. And so it's the GPUs, the TPUs, the DPUs that are being leveraged that move the computation along so quickly that really changes everything. And it's changed the dynamics of Moore's law too. So we thought we were at the end of Moore's law, and we maybe now at the beginning of it. Who knows? So I don't know what's going to happen. I wouldn't have predicted what, the rise of AI this year at the level that has happened. I thought it would be a much slower progression, but it's just, happening all over. And we don't know what the societal impacts of that are going to be. We're seeing people lose their jobs. Ultimately, computers can't run the world if, you can't feed your population. So how do you do all that kind of stuff? So we're seeing technology have another set of societal implications, much like what happened in the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s. And as we change from an agrarian system to an industrial system, and now we're in, what are they calling it? Industry 2.0 or
post-industrial, something like that.
Something, yeah. Jensen Huang has the AI factory that he talks about. So there's some amazing things that are happening, but there's also some amazingly bad things that are going to come out of it, just like with any technology.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. And I think you've given some of us a real good basis for trying to plan for zero trust in the future and worrying about all kinds of, including artificial intelligence.
I'm going to pitch a book that I wrote the forward to. It's called...
Good. Let's see it. Agentic AI and Zero Trust. I'll put it in the show notes. Great.
Yeah, and by my friend Josh Woodruff, and he had me write the forward to it. So just came out. I just got a signed copy this week. So there it is.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. I'll let people know. I'm sure. What I do every Christmas is I give my kids a list of books, and they buy them for, and then until I get them. And so I'll put that on my list with a couple other ones and see if what else can you get from me? You got everything, I got everything, but you can always read something new. It's always fascinating. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, John Kindervag, Chief Evangelist at Illumio. Thanks, John.
Thank you.